Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of the Spartan Shadows podcast. I'm your host Chris. I'm joined with my co-host Zach and Emmett. And today we have a special guest joining us once again, second time on the show. Our friend, MSU Twitter expert, MSU everything expert, Connor Muldowney joins us. Connor, thanks for stopping in again, and it's been a while.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You forgot to say I am MSU Twitter. I am everybody on
Yes.
MSU Twitter. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was exactly. I had to get to the point just with the technical issues we've had trying to get this started. I didn't want to mess it up again. So, but yeah, we've been trying to get Connor on for a while, and it seems like this has been working against us. But we're here. We've got everybody, so we're should be a fun episode for you guys. Zach, Emmett, how's it going? How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. Just absolutely glad to be back on with obviously you, Chris, you, Emmett. Glad that you were able to join. I know last time you joined, I wasn't able to tune in, so I'm happy to be here. Happy to have you on the podcast. I think it's going to be a great discussion, even though we've had a little bit of technical issues to begin with. We're off and rolling. Just happy to be here. Happy to talk about Michigan State. How are you doing, Emmett?
I'm doing pretty good. Obviously, we have a couple more commits for Michigan State football, always a good sign. Jonathan Smith continues to dominate the month of June. Just overall been a great time for MSU and especially recruiting. And obviously, hockey got a little bit of positive news. Basketball got positive news. Overall, the vibes are pretty good over here.
Yep, but another eventful week, good week for MSU sports. Since we've last recorded, which I believe was last Saturday, MSU football has picked up 3 more commits. Wide receiver Samson Gash, wide receiver Tyron Wortham, and corner Jeremiah Favorite all pledged their services to MSU for this cycle. That brings the class total to 21, which is pretty impressive considering where we started the month of June. Solid talent all around. We'll throw it to Connor first since he's the guest. Connor, what do you think of the new recruits and just how Jonathan Smith and company has been doing this June and where we're at recruiting wise?
I mean, going into June, I was probably one of the guys who was, skies falling type of mindset. I'm having four commits going into official visits is, kind of a disaster, but clearly Jonathan Smith knew what he was doing. The last week too, like beating out Alabama and Georgia for 2 solid receivers. Yeah. Jonathan Smith is kind of flexing a little muscle that I didn't know he had. So I would like to see maybe more 4-stars next cycle, but can't ask for too much after a 5-7 season where, you kind of have to sell hope, which is not what coaches really want to do. But I'm pleased overall.
Well, if you're Emmett, though, if we even got a 4-star, Emmett believes that they're just downgraded to a 3-star right away.
True.
It's usually you get the bump, right? Like if you think about like a recruiting bump, like a Michigan player gets a bump, MSU just gets an instant downgrade. Like even if they're a 4-star, they just 3-star. Doesn't
it's
really
a trend.
happen.
Eddie Whiting is a 3-star now. He's a consensus 3-star like everywhere now.
Yeah, but look at Cade Kaufman.
Yeah.
You got
okay, he'd be a high 4-star if he was going to the school down the road. That's my opinion.
It's true.
If you flip him and Brady Smigel, yeah, Smigel's a low 4-star, Kaufman's a high 4.
Yeah, I mean, the Samson Gash, just one of the latest examples. He's a second most recent commit. He's kind of that consensus fringe 3, high 3, low 4 in a lot of places. And I guess he could be a candidate. Yeah, I was 24/7 has him in the 900s though, so it's like I don't know if he'll get the bump or not. But these players are super talented. I try to not really pay too much into the rankings too much or the ratings, I guess. But Samson in particular, I think it was just this past spring set the Michigan State of Michigan record in the 100-meter dash for the state track finals. So kid can fly, absolute speedster. And then Tyron Wortham too is another very talented receiver as well. So that receiving core with Zachary Washington is going to be something to see in the next couple of years as they develop under Coach Hawk. So personally, I like where we're at. Hopefully, we can get a couple more recruits before the end of the month here. But I think I can't complain. We're doing pretty good. Zach, you guys got any other thoughts on the recruiting before we switch it over to the next topic?
Yeah, I actually have a few. One, can we get one of those wide receivers, the number 25? We need the number 25 in the slot for Michigan State back. That's a little bit of a throwback, but it seems like the last time we actually had a slat that was fast that could make plays, he was wearing number 25. We need one of those guys wearing 25 at this point. Also, Jonathan Smith, Courtney Hawkins, they're like we have a need for speed. And that's something that they've done the last couple of obviously commits. They did at Oregon State. Like, not a ton of really tall wide receivers. It's been all really fast wide receivers. So obviously, with like the last couple of years, it hasn't really had a ton of speed. Like, obviously, Nick Marsh, we all know who Nick Marsh is. Like, he's by far probably our best wide receiver. But if you really think about who's the last really fast wide receiver we had, Jalen Naylor. Look how good Jalen Naylor was when he played at Michigan State. He had a couple of huge plays. He wasn't really necessarily the fastest kind of guy, but we're kind of getting back to having these really fast wide receivers, which obviously is going to be really playing into the kind of style that Coach Smith likes to play at, because he kind of likes to play that 49ers type of offense. And if you think about the 49ers and the wide receivers, you have Devo Smith, or Devo Samuel. You also have a couple other guys. Like, you also have Kittle. Kittle obviously isn't a wide receiver, but he's a guy that's at the tight end position, is really used pretty often. So you can say maybe some of these wide receivers, these tight ends, are going to kind of fill these roles that should be doable, that they've been kind of missing the last couple of years, at least missing last year.
Yeah, well, to build on what Zach said, the main thing that stands out for me is that speed that you have. Zach Washington runs, according to his Twitter profile, he runs a 4.37. Then you have Samson Gash, who runs, I want to say laser time in 4.38.
Yeah, he's right there.
And Gash, obviously, Alabama offer track star, and then on the football field, if I'm not mistaken, he had 1,700 yards last year for Catholic Central. Obviously, he's a player that he's productive. Until his track speed rows started standing out, he was kind of being overlooked in the class, but then West Virginia, Michigan State, Cincinnati, Alabama all came calling, and MSU was able to keep him. Going to be playing with his brother next year, assuming everything stays the course. And then Jeremiah Favorite is a player that also I was pretty high on, the defensive back out of South Carolina. Top 20 player in his state. A little bit lower on the rankings, I want to say in the 1200s for composite. But he gives MSU a 6th defensive back in the class. I believe currently they're on pace to graduate 5 or 6, with Nikai Martinez being one of them. Nikai Martinez, and then almost all of the rest is transfers, so that's definitely something to watch. You're going to be looking through that depth this year, especially as the games go on, or even just for a few series. You're going to be subbing a lot of defensive backs, which I believe was the goal when you see that MSU grabbed, 7 defensive backs in the portal. So, yeah. And I feel like you probably have another 3 that are going to commit, and we're going to find out about before the season starts. But overall, I'm very excited for this class. I do think it's almost a continuation of that 2025 class, where it's players that are productive and they fit the scheme of what Jonathan Smith wants, and it's kind of that sleeper class. That not everyone's ranking them super highly, but we care more about production than caring about what the camps say. You can be a superstar in shorts, but if that's all you got going for you, we saw with even a couple former MSU players who are now playing at the MAC level. You can shine and be a 4-star, be a top 100 player, but if you're not productive on the field, then you're playing at the MAC level in a couple years. And some of Mel Tucker's class had that. These players who shine in their athleticism, but did not really pan out.
Yeah, exactly. So I know, I don't know if he ever ended up getting offered. Gash, just to kind of finish up thoughts on him too. I know Michigan was making a later push with him too, so I don't know if he ended up ever getting offered by Michigan or not, but they had him for a workout or two as well. So he was starting to get some pretty big attention from some of the bigger programs, I guess, if you want to call it. And so it was nice and important for the staff to kind of lock that down and finish that commitment out. Hopefully it stays the course. I don't know if it's going to be one of those that maybe have the potential to have to keep recruiting until December, but we'll kind of see how that goes. The one piece of negative recruiting news, I guess we can kind of touch on, 3-star running back Jamal Rule. He announced his decision this past week and ended up picking Nebraska over MSU. So another swing and a miss on a running back for the Spartans, but that was kind of the one, I guess, recruiting thing that didn't go our way recently. So obviously best of luck to Jamal, but he will be playing for Coach Rule in the Cornhuskers next year. So that's all we had on football recruiting. I did want to mention one of the things the four of us for sure like to enjoy. College Football 26 coming out in a couple weeks. They released their top 25 places to play, or hardest places to play, I guess I should say. Spartan Stadium did crack the top 25. I believe they were 25, 24.
24.
24. So nice to see Spartan Stadium still in there even after a couple down years. I'm sure we all think it should be higher when things are humming correctly, but based on the results on the field the last few years, I understand it not being necessarily top 10 place to play, but give it a few weeks. I'm sure the four of us all in our respective dynasties will have it up to the top where it should be, but just something to note there. Yeah, that's all I kind of had with that one. The other big news of the week last night, NBA draft, Jase Richardson was selected in the first round, 25th overall to Orlando, the Magic. Guys, what were our instant thoughts? Connor, if you want to start us off, what do you think? Jase going to the Magic. You like the fit?
I like the fit. I'm a little salty that he got drafted at 25 because I had him getting drafted in the top 25. My bet with real money lost, and I'm salty about it. But other than that, I think the fit is perfect. I had a glimmer of hope when the Kings traded for the 24th pick because he was linked heavily to the Kings in the pre-draft process. So the draft might be rigged. But I like the Magic. I think I read somewhere, and I agreed with it, that the length on the Magic complements him and is going to allow him to do what he does without having. He doesn't have to play a bigger role. He can still do his two-guard stuff and not have to be primary ball handler because they have so much length with, Paulo Banchero can bring the ball up. Franz can bring the ball up. They have big guys who can handle the ball, which can allow him to kind of, slip through screens and run around and get open and play make and do his thing. So I like the fit. It's crazy how many Michigan and Michigan State players have played for the Magic. It's actually crazy. Currently, I think they have Caleb Houston, Jet Howard, both
Wagners. Yeah,
and they just got rid of Gary Harris. So they could have had 6 Michigan or Michigan State players on their roster, which on an NBA team is insane. So hopefully, Jase makes up for what they lose in Gary Harris and then some.
Yeah, definitely. I like the fit too. I kind of echo the same sentiments. It's kind of probably one of the more ideal fits, I thought, for NBA teams. The question mark's always going to be his size compared to NBA players and how that's going to transition defensively, or if he's going to be able to get a shot on the offensive end. I think the way the Magic kind of play their offensive game specifically, it should allow him to free up and do what he can and what he needs to do to get his shots. And so yeah, I thought that was a pretty good fit. I was a little salty too because the only reason I watched the draft was I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch Jase get picked. It shouldn't take very long. He'll be a lottery pick. He'll be up there, and I'll be holding him watching the whole first round because
that trick this. I also read that length, wingspan, is more important than height, which is why a lot of NBA teams shouldn't have been scared off, because it doesn't matter how tall you are, it matters how how you can reach or with defensive and getting shots off and all that stuff.
Yeah. All the draft coverage did for me last night is just kind of solidified that Cohen Carr is eventually going to go number 1 overall, because every attribute they've ever said is a translatable thing to the NBA, Cohen has in spades. So he should be, top 2 pick in my, according to that. But
get that jumper.
No, I think it was a good fit for Jase, and kind of cool also that his dad did play for the Magic for a little bit, so gets to follow in his Jason's footsteps a little bit more again, not just the MSU connection. So Zach, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that it is a really good fit. I honestly think at 25 it's a steal for the Magic just because of his talent. And this was a conversation that was not being had whatsoever before kind of the NBA Combine about being worried about his height. And I know height has always been kind of something that's been a little bit of a concern in the NBA, but you have players that aren't super tall that are thriving in the NBA. And obviously with how the Magic are formed, they just traded for Desmond Bane. They have length around him. It's really going to allow him to kind of be that 3-and-D kind of guy that's just going to be able to make his shots on the outside. He shot 42% from 3 at Michigan State, so obviously he's really good there. And then you also saw the video of him and Izzo celebrating. You see that kind of close connection. And one player that I believe we all love on here Draymond Green. He actually went on Instagram basically calling out people saying that like Izzo holds these players back. Izzo doesn't tell these players to go. Like Izzo doesn't do like first round talent. Well, guess what? He just produced a first round talent for a player that wasn't expected to contribute year one. That really what the question was, when was he going to be contribute? Because I remember a lot of conversations that were being had, especially during Moneyball last year, is how good Curtain looked. And I think Curtain can be very good, and I think he's going to be a huge part of this team this year. But just from where Jase came from and where he finished at the end of the year, like anyone that thinks that he can't be successful in the NBA, in my opinion, I think is wrong, because I think he has the talent. I think he has the shooting ability. I think he has even the athleticism. Just look at the Oregon game. Just watch the Oregon game. Tell me he's not athletic. Now, is he the most athletic player in the world? No, he's not like a Cohen Carr. Like, he's not that type of athlete, but he's a guy that has the ability to succeed in the NBA, not only because his dad played in, understand what it's like to play in the NBA. Obviously, different game when he played back in the 2000s, late or early 2010, but he has that kind of work ethic that enjoyment of playing basketball and being in a position that is joining a young team that is really going to be an up-and-coming team that's going to be competing for playoffs, for championships, in my opinion. It just kind of makes sense, especially just the connection with Michigan State, like Connor was talking about. It just is that right fit for Jason. If he does succeed in the NBA, I think this is a huge part of that.
Yeah, and real quick before, sorry, Emmett, real quick, just to touch on that too. It came out this week too on the subject of Izzo. Jase, I guess, another Jaren Jackson situation, but Jase was slated to come back. He thought he was going to come back to MSU for another year, and Tom Izzo said, no, you don't need to come back. You go now. You're only going to probably hurt your draft stock if you come back. There's not really much more you can accomplish here outside of maybe, winning a national title, but that's not going to necessarily help you in the NBA. Get your money and, go play in the leagues. A lot of the Izzo talk that happens this time of year all the time with 5 stars and draft talent and blah, 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 blah. But there's another prime example of Izzo and caring for his players, and he was with Jase last night, and it was just perfect example. He knows what's best for his players and say, go make your money, go enjoy your career, puts his players first and always has and always will. So I just wanted to add that because we kind of maybe speculated on that, but Jase flat out came out this week and said, Tom told me to go. So that was confirmed. But sorry, Emmett, I just had to throw that in there.
No worries. That was actually one thing I was going to bring up as well, was that he was, he wanted to go, he wanted to come back to MSU, and Tom Izzo, Jaren Jackson, him said, no, you've done enough. You don't have anything left to prove. And building off what Zach said, if Jase Richardson had measured at 6'4", it had 6'4" without shoes at the NBA Combine, Chris probably would have had a short night last night for the draft. But it's everyone getting obsessed with that because honestly, we all know he should have been a lottery pick. He had the talent, and 42% from 3. Granted, he fell into Orlando's lap, which Orlando, like everyone has said on this podcast, and I think every pundit has basically said, this is like the ideal situation for Jase Richardson. And I think one of the main things Orlando needed was also having extra 3-point shooting ability, and that's what Jase Richardson's going to be able to bring to the table. He might not have to play that superstar role minutes, and he didn't have to do that at the start of his time at MSU. And look at how he blossomed by the end of honestly, once conference play started. He just blossomed into it, because I remember even as far back as Maui, I think me, Chris, and Zach were all calling for Jase to get more minutes, for Jase to shoot the ball at least 7 times a game. And then he became that go-to scorer for the team by the end of the year. And obviously that paid off, and MSU was able to ride that to an Elite 8 run. Now, do I think that Orlando's going to be able to have that same, MSU style, just instant, the MSU style of Jase Richardson bossing him into a star in 1 year? It's the NBA. I don't think that's fully possible, but I do think Jase Richardson is set for success he doesn't have to jump into the superstar role right away. but I think that he's going to be a long-term contributor, and I can't see him failing at the NBA level. I think his talent level and his knowledge of the professional league is too great for him to be viewed as one of those guys who might flame out of the league.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, exactly. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
No, I was just gonna say, you talked about how we were kind of like talking about how he needs more shots, how he needs to start. Just imagine Connor, all of MSU Twitter going on, just continue to call
Yeah,
it.
all of MSU Twitter.
He had to be just calling it from day one. It's like, I need every single one of these Twitter accounts to just say it until it happens. So Connor,
At
you had
least
to
one
be
burner
going.
was probably saying no to Jase Richardson, though. You have to play all the angles.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, Connor, you had to be going crazy over there, saying like, "Hey, just start Jase Richardson from the get-go."
Yeah, you should have seen all my phones. I was working them, and Also,
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
it can't be lost that he did have a 38-inch vertical. So like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like I didn't think he had that in his bag, but like obviously he's Jason Richardson's son, so he had to. But like
Everyone's vertical looks short compared to Cohen Carr's. Cohen Carr has spoiled me on verticals for life.
yeah, but I mean he had like the second highest of any guard in the combine. Like I didn't think that was I didn't think that was gonna happen, but yeah, he's got the tools. He's gonna be in the league for a while. I would say.
Yeah, yep. And it's more about fit, if anything. You can get drafted super high, but to a team that maybe your style of play doesn't match up with, and it's not going to get you very far. So hopefully Orlando is a good fit, and with the East being more of the wide open conference in the NBA, who knows what they're going to be able to do with healthy Paolo, and if Desmond Bane turns out to be what they want him to be, I guess is the nicest way to put that. I mean, this isn't an Orlando Magic podcast, but I don't know if that was the trade solution that needed to be done, but whatever, more power to them. So yeah, it's an ideal fit. One last question I had about the draft for you guys, and this is not MSU related, so sorry for the MSU diehards. What the reaction after Jase got drafted? It seemed like Danny Wolf ended up getting picked 3 picks later, but him and his brother, what was going on there? Like I've never seen somebody look so upset. Like because for a second there, Danny Wolf looked like he was like gonna murder somebody, and then to him getting picked, and his brother obviously becoming the meme of the draft, crying in happiness, which I get it too, but that was just a wild turn of events. Did you guys happen to catch that, or that? I don't know if I was maybe off on that, but it was just it was wild because he was mad about something. I think he really wanted to go to the Nets, and when they didn't pick him with the first of those back-to-back picks, that maybe he thought he wasn't going to get picked. I don't know, but that was crazy.
I gotta look that up. I didn't see that.
Yeah, I've not seen it either.
Check it out
if you saw it.
Yeah, check it out if you get time, because he was. I couldn't tell if they were trying to like profile him as like, because he was one of the few people left in the green room that hadn't been picked at that time, so I didn't know if he was mad about that or it was just crazy. And then his brother
draft. I forgot he was there. Okay, yeah, that probably makes more sense. Like he was probably mad.
Yeah,
that would check out.
It was just weird, but then he gets picked and his brother's just like bawling his eyes out in tears of happiness. It was just a crazy turn of events. I don't know. This is wild. I was like half paying attention because finally Jase had been picked. It was just a funny sequence, I guess. Moving over to the last bit of MSU news, we have hockey-related stuff. It has been reported that Gavin McKenna is officially down to MSU and Penn State as his final 2 schools. I guess so the rumors say, which I don't know, it's kind of been weird because that's kind of what it's pointed to the last few weeks, I guess. I know early on Michigan would have thought to have been the one to get him to come over. So when it first became a possibility that he was coming to the NCAA, I just wanted him to go anywhere but Michigan. So I didn't know we were actually going to have a chance at this, but it sounds like we've got a serious shot. Obviously not finalized yet, but that's kind of the latest there. Still, please, if that's at all possible, I've been on record saying it's probably the biggest recruit that MSU could land in any sport so far in its history. Obviously, I'm the hockey bias a little bit, but I mean, this kid has the potential to be the generational, like the next Connor McDavid, the next, whatever. So getting him for 1 year in East Lansing is just a crazy thought. But yeah,
Red propaganda for that one.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Thank
Connor,
you.
you can work your magic on that.
Drive up your engagement. Yep. 20 responses, all of them Connor.
Yeah, I mean, if you just start all of your accounts, start tweeting at him, one of them's bound to
convincing.
bound to get through to him. So, but yeah, you guys, any thoughts on Gavin McKenna? Hopefully, we should know. I would think maybe in the next few weeks. I guess I don't know for sure, but
I feel like it's a weekly segment, is kind of like the athletic director search was. It's a weekly segment of Gavin McKenna updates.
yeah, it's been well, and we keep
Updates for
getting asked
everyone.
about
He's
that.
still really good at hockey.
Yeah,
That's Emmett. I can tell you ahead of time. That's never going to change.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'm a little terrified of him going to Penn State just because Penn State obviously had the Frozen Four run last year, putting him on that Penn State team. Do you begin to question whether they could be one to go and win the Big Ten, either regular season or the Big Ten tournament? I think that putting a piece like that, you can't outright say no to right away, and with the talent around him, I would say Penn State has a legitimate shot, and it would be very interesting to see those matchups of the best goalie in all of college hockey against the best player in all, well, best skater in all of college hockey. I think that would be a must-see matchup, obviously, but you would have that if you went to Michigan too. So just with that trending towards Penn State and how good Penn State looks next year, I'm a little scared of that. So obviously, I hope he goes to Michigan State, not just for having him in the green and white, but also for not having a conference opponent with him.
And if I could do one proposal to Gavin, because I'm sure he's listening to this podcast, I'm sure he's a
Green and white McDonald's.
weekly listener of this.
avid listener.
He's super excited for this next podcast. He's like, they're going to have a guest. It's going to be super fun. We're going to see what this Gavin McKenna update truly is about every single week. But if I could give one proposal, and I know that Jared Bear basically said that this doesn't matter very much of anything, but you have the opportunity to play at Munn, a packed Munn every single night, compared to what Penn State has. And Penn State, while they were really good last year towards the end, that place was empty for the most part. So you get to play in front of fans that love hockey, a program that's revitalized itself, because we all remember, like, George under Mason, like when MSU was really good, when they're winning national championship, when they won in 07. It's been that long, and under Nightingale, it's back. It seems like it's one of the most popular sports now. Sells out every single night. You have season ticket holders, especially the students. I believe at least last year sold out in like 3 minutes. So you have a fan base in Michigan State that is invested, and you have two players that obviously is like a huge checklist of like, what are the things we want, right? We have Isaac Howard, check. We have Trey McKenna or Trey Augustine, check. Now there's two more. Let's get Gavin McKenna. Let's check that off the list, and let's get a national championship.
I think you're forgetting Caden Lindstrom too on that list of
Gavin's
people to check
teammate.
off the list.
Yeah. So there's 5. So we've gotten 3 out of 5. Is it too much to ask for 5 out of 5? Probably.
Is it greedy to ask for a second top 5 selection in an NHL draft on your roster? To be determined.
Probably,
Yeah.
but I want it, and I think MSU, every MSU fan and hockey fan wants it too.
Yeah. Well, and we've alluded to this before, and I know Jared alluded to it as well. MSU's facilities after the renovations to Munn they rival some NHL facilities. It's one of the premier destinations in all of hockey. So if you're going to spend a year, training up your game, working, trying to get better, assumably next year, as soon as you get drafted, you're going to go turn pro. Why not spend a year at the program that runs as close to an NHL program as you can get? And that's a tribute to Coach Nightingale and how he runs his programs based from the U.S. national team development program. And it's an extension of that. And, you have the top of the line equipment, you've got top of the line strength training, and top of the line nutrition, all that stuff. So why not come to the program that will probably best prep you for if you go to the NHL next year or if you spend a year in the AHL beforehand? But Gavin McKenna will probably be, and barring some catastrophic event, the number 1 overall pick next year, and whatever team gets him probably will want him on their roster as soon as possible. So might as well take this next season, play some hockey, the best place you possibly can, get your game as ready for the NHL as you can. Hopefully that's the case. But yeah, that was just the kind of final thought on that. We did have a couple of questions that some listeners sent in. I know Emmett's got one handy, and then I had one that was texted to me about more hockey, but in an effort to cut up the hockey boring talk for some people. We'll probably lose Connor if I keep spilling on hockey for so long. But Emmett, you want to lead off with the last question you got, and we'll answer these and be done for the day.
All right. So the first question we have for everyone is, what are your expectations for Coach Jonathan Smith in year 2 and the Michigan State Spartans for football?
Connor, you want to lead us off on that?
What are my expectations for this team? My expectations have fluctuated so much over the past month, and I don't even think it doesn't even have to do with recruiting, because obviously these players won't be on campus, but it's just the momentum of the program. I think you can kind of feel the juice slowly coming back. I feel like Aiden Childs is going to turn a corner. I just feel like he's going to take that next step. He's confident in himself from everything that he says. He's got many weapons at receiver. I don't remember the last time our receiving core was this deep. The big question marks are defense and offensive line. And according to Emmett, they have a very good offensive line. So I'm going to say my expectations are probably set at 7 wins. That would be anything less than 7 would be pretty disappointing, but make a bowl and I'm happy at this point.
Yeah,
No,
I'll echo that. At this point, you have to go at least 7-5, if not 8-4. The schedule kind of dictates that this year too. The way the Big Ten schedules got restructured, I don't know if we're going to have a better shot to do that. The way we avoided some games and some of the bigger games we have at home. I mean, the tough game obviously being Penn State, but we avoided, the Ohio States, Oregons, stuff like that, traveling crazy distances, all that sort of thing. So even with homecoming getting a break, with UCLA being their first East Coast game of the season, and it being a noon kick, so
brutal for UCLA.
Having for them to play at 9 a.m. their normal time would potentially help us out. So yeah, I think like Connor said, the juice is slowly starting to come back. I do think the biggest holes in the team from last year being the secondary and the offensive line, just because of injury issues. Hopefully the depth has been addressed. I mean, we do have a lot of additions in those position groups, and so I'd like to think we're not going to be as banged up in those position groups, but you never know in football. So hopefully
you can't be as banged up as last year.
Yeah, well, there's a will, there's a way, I guess.
Or if you're as banged up, you have more depth, is at least my hope with this program for next year.
Right. Same. So hopefully that at least helps with not having to, pull people off campus to line up at corner on the weekends or something. So yeah, just with the depth and everything, 7-5, 8-4. If not, you're gonna unfortunately have to get some serious questions into whether or not Jonathan Smith is gonna stay at the helm of this program, just with the way everything is changing. Even though I think it's probably too early to really address that, I tend to want to give a coach a little bit longer of a leash to get his team established the way he wants, but that's not necessarily how college football is working anymore. So, so yeah, I'd say 7-5 bare minimum.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think bowl game is an absolute must next year. Another thing that I really hope isn't too much to ask is, can we get a decent offense? Can we score 20 plus points a game on average? That would be really nice. To have actually a good second half offense as well, that would be really appreciated, especially after next year. And really the last thing is, obviously win the games you should win, but can we also keep some of the better opponents close? Can we make sure in the second half, it's not a complete blowout? I'm not expecting to beat Penn State, but can we at least make it respectful for once? Because think about, when's the last time against a team like Penn State or against a ranked team that we kept it respectful? It's been years. And
first half of Ohio State, maybe? I mean, second half, obviously, we fell apart, but first half Ohio State is the only time I would say we even felt competitive.
Yeah. I don't think it's too much to ask to feel like we belong on the field with them. I'm not saying you have to win. I'm not saying it has to be a one-possession game in the fourth quarter, but at least give us a chance heading into the fourth quarter. At least make me feel like, hey, you know what? While we're losing, while we're not here this year, maybe in a year or two we'll be in that game in that fourth quarter. It's been a while since we've gotten to that point, probably since really the K9 years. Can we get back to that point? I think that's really going to be the biggest thing, is can Jonathan Smith have this team to a point where when they had at Oregon State, when they had maybe quote-unquote a less talented team, but an opportunity to win a game against a more talented team. He did that at Oregon State. I think he's trying to build that at Michigan State. And if he does, I think you'll start to have more fans buy in on this team?
As far as my expectations for the team go, maybe I'm a little more cynical than the rest, just in terms of win predictions. I would say the bare minimum you're expecting is 6. Just try to get that bowl eligible. Try to be able to compete in a bowl game. Get everyone the experience. I don't believe there is a player left on campus anymore who has been a Spartan going to a bowl game anymore. Because I believe the last time that happened was 2021. So you either have 1 or 2 seniors that have experienced a bowl game, or there is nobody at all. So that's just a mark you want to try to turn around. Because obviously, if you're trying to win these recruiting battles that we've been talking about at the start of the podcast, if you want to be competing for those 4-star guys, I wouldn't say 5-star guys yet, but those 4-star, high 4-star guys, you have to probably go and win at least 6 games, at least 7 games. Try to get to that bowl game. Win 7, win the bowl game. 8-win seasons look a lot better than 6 and 7, even though it's just 1 game and maybe you played New Mexico in your bowl game. But they don't look at that, they look at the overall win total. So I'd say that is probably the first thing that you would be looking at, like expectations. And then, like everyone said, yeah, Jonathan Smith could be on the high seat if you see another 5 and 7 campaign, just because you have a new athletic director who didn't have to be impressed and won over by Jonathan Smith in the first place to hire him. That buyout is halved as well. Stuff to monitor, at least for just stuff to monitor. But yeah, I would say expectations 6 and 6, 7 and 5. Hopefully get a bowl game, and you get that 7 and 6, 8 and 5 record. Anything better than that, I'm extremely happy.
I do want to propose one thing. I think we'd all agree with this. Will we be all okay if we made it to the Pop-Tart Bowl? I personally,
I don't think we have a tie-in, but yeah.
I was just gonna say I'm personally a fan, so I can. And if we win, we can eat a Pop-Tart. I'm full on
100%.
Pop-Tart Bowl. It's in the NCAA football game as well, and they have a Pop-Tart there as well. It seems like that's what's happening. So I would love a Pop-Tart Bowl. One year.
One more.
This is
I was
going
going to say one more point for me.
Yeah.
One more point that I had was just looking at I believe that I was sent this article that Michigan State's projected either 14th or 15th among Big Ten teams for its standings predictions when they predicted all 136 college football teams how they would do. I believe Michigan State was picked 14th or 15th in their conference, but of opponents they're playing this year, I believe they play literally 14, 13, 12, 10 among some of their opponents. So obviously it's all in front of you, and then the second highest opponent they play is Michigan at 6 or Michigan at 5. Then you have like Indiana at 7. So there is a lot of winnable games this year. The Spartans are going to have to grab it and take it from the teams around them. Like UCLA is 1 spot above them, and that's only because Nico, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, I'll be honest.
Yes, Nico.
Yeah. But with the transfer of Nico from Tennessee, that's the only reason really you saw them even bump from being projected 17-18 competing with Purdue.
Yep. The last part of that question, too, was who are the biggest additions to the team this year that you think will help the Spartans improve that overall record and eventually get bowl game eligible? Connor, do you have anybody in mind?
I would say the receivers, the 3 receivers if you include Evan Boyd, and don't they have a 4th one from Valdosta?
Rod Bullard.
Yeah, so I think the receivers, I don't know enough about Tao Tolliver to make a judgment on that. I like the offensive line additions. We have 75 the backs now, so maybe some of them will slide over to running back or receiver or something, or offensive line. I don't know. I think the receivers are going to make the biggest difference in bowl or no bowl.
Yeah, not being the only Nick Marsh show or Nick Marsh and company, but yeah, I'll go just to change up. I'll go Connor Moore, the tackle that we got transferred in. I think he's going to be another type of player that comes in and really anchors the line in a way we needed, just like you saw last year with, I'm blanking on the name, the kid that transferred in, or
from Oregon State?
Yeah, that came with Jonathan Smith.
Tanner
Miller. Jeez, oh Pete. Yeah. So Tanner, just kind of having a son hero that can line up every game and kind of, not have to make you worry about the spot he's playing and really kind of get some consistency going with that offensive line. Because that, like I said, the depth was the problem because we had so many injuries, but because of that, you don't get reps with the players you're playing with, and the offensive line needs to be on the same page more than any other group on the field. So that's probably my biggest. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of you guys have already just covered some of the players that are going to be really impactful players, like wide receivers, offensive line. Really going to be interested to see what happens at the defensive end positions that we bring in. I think that's going to be the biggest question mark of this team is can we actually have a pass rush? Because we all know that we didn't have one last year. We went 6 games without a single sack, which is really, really bad for anyone that doesn't know football or anyone that does know football. You should probably get a sack in 6 games. I think you'd be pretty good if you at least got one of those. So would love some improvement there. Hopefully we can at least get a sack every single game. That would be a great improvement from last year.
Yeah, I agree with Zach. The last time I saw a team go 6 games without a sack in any level of football would be my 8th grade football team. We went 6 games without a sack, and we never won a game. So just throwing that out there. A little bit of a lore drop for you guys, but no, I would say biggest impact, like Chris said, offensive line, honestly, because in addition to having Matt Gulpin, Luka Binkic, and Connor Moore all coming in, and Caleb Carter, all four of whom I believe can or will start a game for MSU this year. You have Christian Phillips returning from injury after missing 11 games. Gavin Brocious back after missing 9 games. So overall, I think you see a lot of players. You almost get an entire second transfer portal class just from players that get back from injury. You have Chance Rucker back after missing, 10 games? I believe he got injured in Maryland on the second snap. Khalil Majid is back. And then you have players coming back with experience. Justin Denson returns after logging, 100, 150 snaps last year, and according to PFF, doing a really good job. So now you're going to have him hopefully increase snaps, especially with Dylan Tatum transferring out. And I just think the offensive line and defensive backs, all 75 of them, as Connor said, I think those guys are going to show out. I'm very high on Joshua Eaton, very high on Najee Burt, very high on Malcolm Bell. Malcolm Bell has length, which is something that you're going to love to see, especially with, I feel like the one time that Chuck Brantley was getting picked on last year before his transfer would be just, you would occasionally see him have perfect positioning and just end up getting mossed. We saw this almost his entire career. Malcolm Bell is a guy, PFF views him really high. I know I talk PFF a ton, but PFF viewed him really high during his time at UConn, and I think that he can take that step with MSU. We saw players who transfer up a level to MSU and not really lose a step back on their game, so hopefully that's the case in the defensive back room.
Real quick, too, shout out to some of the incoming freshmen. I think Braden Collier, obviously we've talked about Braden Collier a lot, but I think he could be an impact maker in the receiving core. Jase Colorizio coming in. I don't know exactly how many snaps they'll all get as incoming freshmen, but the talent's certainly there, so they could be players that could really help too. Zach, did you have anything?
I was just gonna say we've had Connor on for quite a while, so I just want to really appreciate you joining. I don't know how long you were planning on joining, but it's gone quite a while, so really appreciate you joining.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking with you guys, and I think we always have a good time talking, and it's good to just vent about Michigan State and talk about Michigan State, and hopefully you guys have me on again.
Yes. Yep. Whenever. We got some fun ideas that we've been talking about for the football season. So hopefully maybe we can get some, we've had talks about doing maybe like a live watch party for some of the games every once in a while. So if we do, we'll have to get you on and we can have live venting sessions about the the real-time interceptions or whatever happens. But yeah, no, I wanted to echo that too. A special shout out to Connor because a lot of what we do was his working and his doing. So we appreciate him allowing us to get on here and yap at you guys every week and do all the stuff that we've done with Spartan Shadows and me specifically too with Spartan Avenue and stuff like that. So it's always a good time. So we appreciate you coming on and letting us talk, yammer on each week. So we appreciate it. And of course, come back whenever. So
appreciate that.
Yeah, special shout out Connor, especially being the one who's, when I'm texting him, hey, so this recruit is going to commit later. Can I preload an article? Shout out to Connor being able, and I think this was at like 11 or 12 at night, I want to say, was the Zach Washington commitment. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this kid's committing to MSU. If I pre-write an article, can you just post it whenever the commitment drops? So shout out to Connor for all that he does for Shadows, and also I used to spend time at Avenue, so shout out for him for all the stuff he does over at Avenue. If you haven't checked it out, great site. We'll link it in the description.
Yep. So, yeah, that's all we have this week. We'll be back next. Actually, we may not be back next week. We'll get you the schedule out. 4th of July coming up, and we may have a week break just because the scheduling conflicts might be a little difficult. I know Zach's taking some much needed vacation time, and I'm gonna hopefully try to do the same. So.
And the week after that is College Football 26. I might need a week for College Football 26 coming out.
There you go.
Yeah, the next episode of the podcast just be Emmett playing his game. We'll have Emmett stream a Dynasty mode.
Yeah, I'll just stream it for you guys.
Yep. So, but we appreciate you guys. We'll let you know the schedule as we kind of figure it out, and then with official visit season winding up, we're gonna have a couple of recruiting finalizations. Hope to get a couple more guests on, and then get geared up for football season in a month and a half, 2 months. So we're getting closer to the off season being over. So ever so slightly, but we appreciate everybody tuning in. Again, shout out to Connor for joining us. Everybody have a great night and have a good weekend, and go green.
Go away.
Go away.